Hi, my name is Leora. My family didn't scream or slam doors. They whispered, signed papers, changed locks. They told neighbors I was unstable, told lawyers I was unfit. And while I was busy proving I could survive, they were already selling the house I grew up in. But here's what they didn't know. I found something they forgot to destroy, and that changed everything. A police cruiser pulled into my driveway just before sundown. My sister Vanessa stood on the porch, casually waving at the officers like they were family friends arriving for a barbecue. I had just stepped outside with the recycling bin, still in my work-from-home sweatpants. I smiled nervously, thinking maybe it was a welfare check or a mistake. It wasn't. "Leora Maddox?" one officer asked as he approached. I nodded slowly. "You're under arrest for possession with intent to distribute," he said, pulling out the cuffs. I stuttered. "What?" "There's been a mistake. I don't—" "Turn around," he said firmly. "The hands behind your back." The cuffs clicked shut. My sister took a step back and folded her arms. Not a flinch, not a word. Inside the police cruiser, I caught a glimpse of her smirking through the side mirror. They held me at the county station for 4 hours. I was fingerprinted, processed, and questioned while still trying to make sense of what was happening. The detective assigned to my case kept flipping through a thin manila folder. I could see a few photos of a small plastic pouch and some torn foil. None of it looked familiar. "I don't use drugs," I said for the 5th time. "There has to be a mistake." "You live alone?" he asked. I shook my head. "No, I moved back with my parents after the layoffs. Temporarily." That's when he leaned back and said, "Your mother and father just gave us statements. They're concerned. Said you've been behaving erratically. Said you've had episodes before." My breath caught. "What episodes?" "They said there were concerns in college. Counseling referrals, missed appointments, mood swings." That was 10 years ago. And it was anxiety. I was never diagnosed with anything. My voice cracked. "You think I'd stash drugs under my own dresser?" He slid a photo across the table. A close-up of a Ziploc bag tucked beneath the bottom drawer of my bedroom dresser, next to a burned spoon and a few crushed pills. I leaned back, lightheaded. "That's not mine." A moment later, I heard a soft knock on the glass. My parents had arrived. I stood up instinctively, expecting them to back me up, explain the misunderstanding. But when my mother entered the room, her face was calm, controlled. She sat across from me and said quietly, "You've been under pressure lately, sweetie. Maybe this is a cry for help." I stared at her. "You know I didn't do this." She leaned in. "Sometimes we need to make sacrifices. This family can't handle another scandal." "Not after what happened with Uncle Curtis." My father didn't even sit. He just nodded in agreement. "We've already spoken to the officers. We'll do everything we can to support your recovery." My recovery? That night, I was released on bail. My mom signed the check without a word. The ride home was silent, except for the soft hum of the car radio. I kept my eyes on the back of Vanessa's head in the passenger seat. The house looked the same, but I didn't feel like I belonged in it anymore. I went to my room and scanned every corner. Nothing felt familiar. Later, as I walked past Vanessa's door, I heard her voice, her laugh, and then she actually cried. No joke. Cried like a kid. A pause. Then, "I told you it would work." I stepped away, heart pounding. It wasn't just an accident. It wasn't a prank. It was a setup. And everyone in my family had a role. Except me. I sat on the edge of my bed for an hour, staring at the carpet, replaying the last week. Vanessa had asked to borrow my charger. I'd waved her into my room without thinking. I remember her lingering longer than necessary, rustling around the drawer near my dresser. She'd said something about losing an earring under my bed. I hadn't thought twice. 2 nights later, I overheard my father on the phone. "They're watching us again," he'd whispered. "Just keep her out of it this time." That same night, I saw Mom with a new folder in her home office. The label read, "Leora, Contingency Plan." How many signs had I ignored? The pieces were aligning. Vanessa's intrusion into my room, the planted drugs, my parents' convenient concern about my mental health. Their carefully curated narrative. I wasn't just collateral damage, I was the fall girl. I didn't sleep the night I saw that folder. Not really. I lay there in the dark, eyes fixed on the ceiling, listening to every shift of the house. Pipes groaned. Boards creaked. Somewhere, a phone buzzed and went silent. But the noise that kept repeating, louder than all of it, was Vanessa's laugh, mocking, familiar, and suddenly sinister. By morning, my body moved before my brain did. I was already in the hallway, standing in front of her door. I didn't knock politely. I pounded twice. She opened it like she'd been waiting. "Why?" I said. She smiled like it was a greeting card commercial. "Why what, Leora? You know exactly what I mean. Why would you set me up?" The smile stayed, but her eyes sharpened. "You were dragging everyone down. I did what no one else had the guts to do." My mouth dried. "By framing me?" She cocked her head. "Framing's a strong word. I'd say, cleaning house." I blinked. "You planted those drugs." She stepped back, crossed her arms. "I didn't plant anything. I just gave people the version of you they were already whispering about." That broke something. I turned, walked out, but her voice followed me. "You've always been the weak one, the one with episodes. Guess it finally caught up." I found our mother in the kitchen, reading the paper, acting like none of this existed. "I need to talk," I said. My hands were shaking. She folded the paper in half, slowly. "What now?" Vanessa admitted it. She just told me to my face she did it. Mom sighed, like I was exhausting. "And what did you say to her?" I asked why she set me up, why she put drugs under my dresser. She leaned back, squinted like I was lying. "And you believe that? After everything you've done?" My voice cracked. "I haven't done anything." "You haven't? Shall we go through the list?" Her tone turned sharp. "The time you screamed at your teacher in 8th grade, that meltdown at college. What about your last job when you couldn't handle the stress?" "That's not the same." "No," she interrupted. "You've always been unstable. This family's had to carry your mess for years. Maybe Vanessa just got tired." I stared at her, but she wasn't done. "You've always been jealous. You hate when anyone's better than you. Admit it." I took a step back. She added with deliberate venom, "Maybe you planted it on yourself and forgot." I left the kitchen without a word. Later that day, I waited for my father in the garage, hoping for something different. A sliver of belief, at the very least, silence. But when he pulled in, he didn't even cut the engine. "You need to let this die," he said through the window. "Just lay low. Things blow over quicker if you don't keep stirring." "You think I did it too?" He glanced at the side door. "You make people nervous when you talk too much. That's always been the problem." That night, they had dinner. Not just them, my aunts, my cousins, a few neighbors. I saw them through the kitchen window, laughing over lasagna. I hadn't even known there was a plan. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from my aunt, clearly meant for Vanessa. Just Vanessa and us. Safer that way. No one corrected it. No one followed up. I sat on the back porch for over an hour after that. Didn't move. Didn't cry. Just computed. The way a detective pieces together a scene. Motive, opportunity, coordination. This wasn't about me being unstable. It was about control, narrative, optics. And I was the easiest one to sacrifice. Later that night, I went down to the basement. Old storage bins were still marked from when I'd moved back in. College, health, legal docs. I opened one labeled medical and started digging. Buried under immunization records and a hospital bill from a sprained ankle was a single yellowing sheet. Psychological evaluation, age 14. Patient, Leora Maddox. The diagnosis box was blank. The note said, "No concerning traits. Patient demonstrates situational anxiety. No follow-up required." I'd been told I was flagged by a counselor at school, that my parents had been warned, that I'd had episodes no one wanted to talk about. But this report told a different story. And then it hit me. That memory, I was maybe 13. Vanessa had gotten caught stealing from a neighbor's garage, some dumb prank gone wrong. My parents sat her down and explained how they'd covered for her. People already expect Leora to mess up, Mom had said. Let her take the noise. It'll go away faster. I remember Vanessa smirking. I remember myself nodding because I didn't understand yet, but I understand now. That night, I didn't sleep because I knew what I had to find next. After hours of sifting through mislabeled bins and dust-choked cardboard, I finally peeled open a cracked green folder shoved behind a stack of holiday decorations. It wasn't labeled, just tucked beneath a faded Christmas tree skirt. Inside was a sealed plastic Ziploc, and within it, a file with my name on it, dated 21 years ago. Patient, Leora Maddox. Age, 8. I scanned the first page. Diagnosis, severe malnourishment. The intake notes were handwritten and clinical. Presented with dizziness, bruising along spine and arms, suspicion of prolonged isolation, guardian claimed child was a picky eater. There was a box checked, follow-up requested by intake nurse, child visibly underweight, signs of confinement trauma. My breath slowed. I flipped the page. Patient story inconsistent. When prompted, stated, I was bad, so I had to stay quiet under the steps. I froze. That phrase, it unlocked something. A memory not quite buried, but filed deep in instinct. I was 8. I'd fainted in the hallway. My mom's scream hadn't sounded panicked. It had sounded rehearsed. Vanessa had rushed in right after, wailing louder than necessary, cradling me as if she hadn't just passed me a dry slice of toast 2 days earlier and said that was all I'd earned. In the ER, Mom crouched beside my hospital bed and whispered in a sugar-sweet voice, "We tell the doctors you just forgot to eat, okay?" And I nodded. Because at that age, I believed her. I believed them all. Now, it read like a manual for how to manufacture a scapegoat. And the hospital. They filed the notes, but they didn't push, no follow-up. Just another child acting out in a stable, middle-class home. I stared at the pages for over an hour. No tears, just inventory. By morning, I had a plan. I remembered a kid from high school who'd escaped a violent home after getting legal help from a local nonprofit. I tracked him down on Facebook, sent a message. He replied within 10 minutes. Yeah, the guy's name is Carson Blake. Smart, tough. If you've got anything in writing, he's your guy. Carson's office was in a converted Victorian house near downtown. When I walked in, he was already flipping through my scanned documents. He didn't waste time on sympathy. This isn't enough, he said, blunt. It's suggestive, but not prosecutable. You need corroboration, witnesses, preferably ones not related to the alleged perpetrators. I nodded. There was a housekeeper, Ms. Dolores. She was there back then. He leaned forward. Can you find her? I already had her address on my phone. After leaving Carson's office, I stopped by a local cafe not far from the church she supposedly worked at. I watched the street, waiting. At exactly 3:17 p.m., I spotted her. Miss Dolores. Gray hair tied back, slower than I remembered, but upright. She wore a pale blue daycare polo. Same posture, same sharp eyes. I approached carefully. Ms. Dolores? She turned. Her eyes scanned my face and widened. Leora? I nodded. Can I sit with you? Just for a moment. We found a quiet corner in the cafe. She didn't touch her tea. She just kept staring at me like she was counting years. You look like your father, she finally said. I didn't respond. I opened my folder instead and slid a single page across the table, the page from the hospital, the box marked confinement. Her lips parted slightly. I asked, Do you remember? She didn't speak for a moment. Then, in a voice that trembled but didn't waver, I never forgot. She looked down at her tea, both hands wrapped tightly around the cup. You were 8. They told me to go home early one Friday, said they'd handle dinner. I came back Monday, and you were limping. I asked where you'd been. Vanessa said you were grounded, but you wouldn't speak to anyone. Then I heard it, from under the stairs. I heard you crying. I swallowed. Dolores glanced around the cafe, then leaned in. I opened that door. You were sitting in the dark. There was a sheet and a bucket. I told your mother I'd call CPS. She told me if I did, she'd say I'd put you there, that I was fired, so I quit. I always regretted not speaking up. I thought maybe you'd forget. Maybe it wouldn't follow you. Her voice cracked. But I see now, it did. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice recorder. Dolores, I said quietly, would you be willing to say that on record? Her hand hovered above her tea. She looked at me. Not just the adult I'd become, but the child she'd once tried to rescue. And she nodded. After Dolores nodded, I ended the recording and stood slowly. We didn't need more words. By the time I reached my car, my phone buzzed with a notification, an evite from my sister, Vanessa. Subject, Mom's birthday dinner celebration. Dress code, black tie. Venue, Marlwood Country Club. Time, 6:00 p.m. Sharp. Guests, family, longtime friends, and selected donors. It wasn't a peace offering. It was a performance. And I accepted. The Marlwood dining hall looked like a spread from a bridal magazine. Round tables in crisp linen, gold-trimmed china, strings of artificial pearls dangling from the chandeliers. Everyone dressed like they wanted to be noticed, but not remembered. I walked in alone, hair pinned, navy dress sharp, no smile. Vanessa saw me immediately. Her eyes widened a fraction, then reset into what I'd come to call her broadcast face, friendly enough to make you doubt your instincts. She approached with a flute of champagne. Leora, she said, drawing out the syllables. You came. That's unexpected. I took the glass. You invited me. She tilted her head. I invite people to all sorts of things. Doesn't mean they show up. Before I could answer, my mother appeared, arm hooked through Dad's. She wore pale rose, soft, satin, staged. She kissed my cheek with no warmth. I'm glad you're here, she said. You look well. Dad added. You've always cleaned up nicely when you put effort in. I didn't answer either of them. Just raised my glass and moved toward my assigned seat. They'd put me next to Aunt Valerie, chatty, oblivious, and partially deaf. I didn't mind. Dinner began with salad, light piano in the background, conversations low and curated. Then, after the main course, Vanessa stood and tapped her glass. Everyone, she said, voice honeyed and slow. Before dessert, I'd like to make a toast. People turned, napkins dabbed at mouths. Waitstaff paused. I think it's time we raise a glass, she continued, to this family, to growth, to healing, to clean slates. I lowered my fork. Vanessa smiled wider. We've all had detours, difficult years, but here we are, together, stronger, moving forward. A few relatives clapped. My father nodded proudly. I leaned back in my chair. If we're all about clean slates, I said calmly, then let's prove it. Silence rippled. I placed my phone on the table. How about we all show our phones, messages, photos, group chats, no secrets, right? Vanessa's expression didn't flicker, but my father's hand twitched. He reached for his wine glass, then knocked it over. Red spilled fast across the white tablecloth, catching the edge of my plate and soaking the corner of my napkin. Gasps. A couple people laughed nervously. My mother hissed, Really, Richard? He snapped, It's fine. Vanessa regained control. Leora, she said, too evenly, this isn't the time. No? I asked. Why not? What better place than here, where everyone you've lied to is seated, fed, and already dressed up? She laughed, sharp and brittle. She's delusional again. Just ignore it. Across the table, a cousin whispered to her husband. Eyes darted. But no one met mine. I scanned them slowly. Uncles, aunts, family friends. People who had known something or chosen not to know. People who complimented my mother's style while stepping over the silence in our house. I stood and reached into my bag, pulled out a single white envelope. Vanessa narrowed her eyes. What is that? I placed it at the center of the table. It was sealed. No tricks. Just ink. On the front, in clean handwriting. This time, I'm not alone. L. Happy birthday, I said quietly. And I walked out. No one followed. I drove home in silence. No music. No calls. Just a clear lane and headlights cutting through dusk. By the time I slipped my shoes off and opened my laptop, my hand was steady. I uploaded the voice recording from Dolores. Then I attached the hospital file. Her testimony, her signed statement, a brief timeline, and a copy of my written complaint, now notarized. I sent the file to 3 inboxes, one labeled Blake Legal, one labeled State Social Services, Archived Claims Unit, and one labeled The Ledger, Investigative Editor. Then I went to bed. The next morning, their phones blew up. I knew, because so did mine. Text messages, missed calls, emails with subject lines like, "What did you do?" and "Please, talk to us." One voicemail from Vanessa was only 8 seconds long. "You're not thinking clearly. This is harassment." Another from my father. "Enough. You're not dragging this family through mud just to play victim." I didn't respond, because something else arrived. A reply. From the Ledger. Subject, Submitted files, request for follow-up. Body, thank you for your submission. We've reviewed the initial documents and are assigning the case to our feature reporter, Joanna Reyes. She may reach out for an interview. Your story matters, and it's not over. The morning after the Ledger's reply, I woke to 14 missed calls, 22 texts, and one email titled, "Urgent, please read." Not from strangers, from family, but none of them mattered anymore, because I'd spent the entire night preparing something that couldn't be ignored. I opened my laptop, pulled up the distribution list labeled Hoyt, Full Tree, and attached the audio file. Subject line, "Let's start with the truth." Body, "This recording took place 3 weeks ago. Make your own conclusions." I hit send. 3 minutes later, I got the first reply. Then the group chat started to implode. The voice on the recording was Vanessa's. "All I need is mom and dad's signature and she's back in the psych ward. No court needed. Just a couple of well-placed statements and they'll lock her down again. We've done it before." No music, no edits, just her voice. Crisp, confident, time-stamped. One cousin responded, "Jesus Christ." Another posted, "I thought this was just a family feud. That's not a feud. That's a felony." I stayed silent. Because I wasn't done, I followed it up with the second email. Subject line, "What you signed." Attached, a bank statement showing $37,284 withdrawn under my name over 19 months. The withdrawal slips, the forged signature, identical across all 13. A side-by-side handwriting analysis from a certified examiner, a notarized affidavit from the local notary who never met me, yet somehow witnessed my signature 5 times. I didn't offer interpretation, just facts. In the group chat, Aunt Sandra wrote, "Wait, that's Miriam's handwriting. That's your mother's. I recognize it from Christmas cards." One of the older cousins, Frank, messaged me directly. "We always wondered why you got cut out of everything. I'm sorry, we should have asked more questions." I didn't answer, because it wasn't about apologies, it was about record keeping. And by noon, my father left the group. Vanessa replied once, posting a single emoji. Then she deleted her message. But it was too late. Screenshots were already circulating. A third cousin asked, "Did anyone else see what Vanessa posted before she took it down?" I let the silence sit. Then came the knock on my door. Not a person, just a courier. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, sealed with embossed initials. I opened it slowly. Law Offices of Branson Gill. A formal defamation claim. Filed by Vanessa Hoyt. Alleging emotional distress, character assassination, and reputational damages stemming from unauthorized release of private conversations. It even cited her right to familial dignity under state law. But the envelope wasn't all that arrived that day. At 3:42 p.m., I received a notification from the County Behavioral Health Database. My legal status had changed. Your name has been added to the Adult Psychiatric Guardianship Petition Registry. A review is pending. Contact the court clerk for further information. The petitioner, Richard Hoyt, Miriam Hoyt, filed jointly. I stared at the screen. No rage, no disbelief, just acknowledgement. They'd gone nuclear. Instead of addressing what I revealed, they tried to eliminate the messenger. One lawsuit, one psychiatric accusation, one desperate final move to silence me before my story reached daylight. But it was already too late for them, Because when I refreshed my inbox an hour later, Joanna Reyes, the Ledger's senior investigative reporter, had replied. Her message was brief. I've seen the files. I've spoken to Dolores. I'm in. Let's talk. Joanna's message blinked on the screen for exactly 3 seconds before I stood up, grabbed the external drive from my drawer, and started packing. Not out of fear, out of precision. I had a plan. And every second now mattered. By noon, I was sitting across from her in a quiet corner booth of a diner 2 blocks from the Ledger's downtown office. She didn't waste time. No pleasantries. Just this. This goes deeper than I thought. Tell me everything that hasn't been typed. I slid the drive across the table. You'll want to check folders labeled K47 and DD3. The timestamps match my family's filing for psychiatric guardianship. You'll also find metadata from the forged documents, same IP address, same timestamps, all traced. Joanna nodded once. No questions, just quiet confirmation. And with that, the retaliation officially began. The legal assault came first. 3 days later, I was served in person. A thick envelope, petition for protective conservatorship over Leora Hoyt, filed jointly by Vanessa Hoyt and Richard Hoyt. The documents described me as exhibiting delusional behavior, fixations on conspiracy, and erratic interpersonal conduct posing financial danger to herself and others. They listed the Ledger article link as proof of mental instability. The courtroom was cold, purposefully so. Vanessa arrived in pearl earrings, a camel trench coat, and that smile she wore at every funeral. Her attorney, Jonathan Burke, walked in like he already owned the outcome. Vanessa's opening statement? We are not here to punish my sister. We're here to protect her from herself, and from people exploiting her pain for headlines. She gestured subtly toward Joanna in the back row. Their argument was polished, clinical, hollow. Then I stood, no theatrics, no defense speeches, just this. Your Honor, I'll submit Exhibit A. It's a certified transcript of a notarized audio recording, my sister planning to have me institutionalized without medical cause, time-stamped, witnessed, authenticated. For the first time, Vanessa didn't smile. And for the first time, no one in the courtroom looked at her. They all looked at me. But even as the courtroom drama unfolded, the financial sabotage surfaced quietly. 2 days later, I walked into First Meridian Bank, application folder in hand. I'd been planning to move, nothing extravagant, just a 1-bedroom with a garden, a place that was mine. The loan officer, a middle-aged man with soft eyes, barely looked up. I'm sorry. You've been flagged by 2 risk algorithms, credit behavior, legal instability. You're marked as high risk. We can't proceed. I blinked. I have a 752 credit score. He rotated his screen. On it, $14,700 balance on a personal loan I never took. Missed payments on a furniture installment plan I'd never heard of. A payday loan approved online using my social security number and my name. Signed digitally from an IP address in Bayside, my parents' neighborhood. I asked for the full digital trail. He hesitated, then leaned in. You didn't hear this from me, but the loan origination server logs show tablet device access, registered to a Verizon account. The metadata shows Van Hoyt Tab 5 as the device name. I didn't thank him. I just walked out with copies of the logs. By that evening, I'd contacted Andy Barros, a digital forensics analyst I met through a whistleblower support group. She charged by the hour. She worked in silence, and she didn't ask why I needed this. I sent her everything. Screenshots, the suspicious loan records, the device IDs, the emails. 2 days later, her message arrived. IP matches all 3 fraud events. Same tablet, same user. Metadata confirmed. Digital fingerprints don't lie. Whoever used that device forged your identity repeatedly. She attached a diagram, 3 fraud events, 1 device, all pointing back to Vanessa. Then came the psychological evaluation trap. Their legal petition demanded a court-ordered psych exam, claiming inconsistent behavior and growing paranoia. I agreed, but I made one change they didn't anticipate. Under California statute, I had the right to select a licensed provider from the state list. I chose Dr. Lana Phelps, a trauma-focused psychologist I'd worked with during my recovery after my last institutionalization. Ironically, the one Vanessa orchestrated. I arrived for the evaluation prepared. Timeline, documents, receipts. 2 weeks later, her report landed in the court record. No signs of delusion, paranoia, or psychosis. Subject is oriented, emotionally coherent, and cognitively functional. Evidence suggests a pattern of sustained emotional sabotage by family members, including identity fraud and gaslighting. Subject is not a threat to herself or others, but appears to be the target of a coordinated psychological defamation campaign. It was the first official document that used the word I'd never dared say out loud. Sabotage. The day the court acknowledged receipt of the report, I sat alone in my apartment, rereading Dr. Phelps' findings. The printer whirred as I made 4 hard copies. Then I picked up my phone. Joanna answered on the first ring. "They tried to break me," I said. But I went deeper. Her voice was steady. "It's time." We agreed on what would come next. I was being erased, but now I had proof, and someone willing to speak. Joanna and I spoke for less than 3 minutes. By the end of the call, we both knew exactly what needed to happen next and who needed to be there. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was afraid, but because I couldn't afford to be unprepared. I reviewed every page of the file, every photo, every IP trace and notarized affidavit. I printed a fresh copy of the court-sanctioned psychological report and placed it in a slim black folder. Then I added one more envelope, sealed, labeled, and hand-addressed. By morning, I was standing outside the Los Angeles County Probate Courthouse. Inside, the courtroom was chilled to 68 degrees, deliberately. That's how they keep people off balance, make the air just cold enough to distract from what's being said. Vanessa sat at the petitioner's table, flanked by both my parents and her attorney. My father wouldn't look at me. My mother offered a sad little nod, like she was about to bury a pet. The judge entered. What followed was a rehearsed assault, evidence packets marked Exhibit A through M, filled with cherry-picked therapist notes, outdated prescriptions, and several pages printed from a forum on familial trauma. Their argument leaned on vague patterns and selective memory. Vanessa read a paragraph out loud about my fixation with justice and called it a symptom of grandiosity. She looked proud. When the judge finally turned to me and asked if I'd like to respond, I said nothing for 3 full seconds. Then I stood, cleared my throat, and said, "I'd like to call a witness." The courtroom paused. Even Vanessa's attorney looked unsure. The judge nodded once. "Proceed." The side door opened. A woman walked in wearing a dark charcoal blazer and square glasses. Her name was Dolores. 30 years ago, she worked for our family. She walked to the witness stand with the calm of someone who had waited decades for this moment. Under oath, she started, "My name is Dolores Emmons. I was employed by the Hoyt family from 1994 to 2001. I was a live-in housekeeper and occasional caretaker." The judge asked her to continue. She didn't flinch. "In the spring of 1997, I witnessed Leora, then 8 years old, being confined in a locked storage room off the basement. This happened more than once. I saw Vanessa standing at the top of the stairs holding the key. She laughed when Leora banged on the door. A gasp rose from the gallery. I tried to speak to their mother about it once. She said, "It's just how we discipline her. She's too dramatic. I left that job the following summer. I should have left sooner." Vanessa stared forward, unmoving. But her jaw tightened. The judge's pen stopped moving. I walked forward and placed 3 sealed folders on the evidence table. These include forensic analysis from an independent digital investigator, linking online loan applications, debt authorizations, and digital signatures to a tablet registered to Vanessa Hoyt's home Wi-Fi, IP logs, and metadata included. I continued, steady. Second, the court-ordered psychological evaluation performed by Dr. Lana Phelps, a state-certified trauma specialist, finds no signs of delusion, paranoia, or psychiatric threat. But it does cite signs of long-term family coercion and identity destabilization. A murmur spread through the room. I opened the final folder. Third, Financial statements from 3 institutions where credit lines were fraudulently opened in my name, all tied to digital devices used within Vanessa's residence, confirmed by geotagged access logs. The judge picked up the psych evaluation. He read in silence, then set it down with 2 fingers. His next sentence cut through the air. This hearing is no longer about mental health. It is now a matter of fraud. The room shifted. My mother's posture sagged. My father whispered something to their lawyer. Vanessa stood up, too quickly, and pushed back from the table. "This is a setup," she hissed. "She's just performing for a blog or a Netflix pitch or whatever sick fantasy she sold herself." She walked out. The courtroom doors slammed. My mother's hand trembled against her collarbone. Then she fainted, silent, sudden. Court staff rushed to her side. Paramedics were called. The judge addressed the room. "The court is placing all actions on hold pending a full investigation into possible criminal impersonation and malicious conservatorship filing. Ms. Hoyt, you are temporarily released from any guardianship restrictions. You may leave." I gathered my things, not in triumph, just in motion. This wasn't over. As I stepped into the hallway, a woman stood near the door, press badge on a lanyard, recorder already in hand. "Leora Hoyt?" I turned. "Would you be willing to go on record?" I didn't answer right away. I looked past her, to the exit doors, to the cloudy morning outside, to the things I still hadn't said. Then I nodded once. But only if I get to name every person who tried to disappear me. I didn't shake her hand. I didn't thank her for the opportunity. I just told the reporter exactly how this would work. She could ask anything she wanted, but the first thing I would do was name every person who tried to erase me. She paused, then hit record. I gave her 22 names. By the time I left the courthouse steps, my fingers were trembling, not from fear, but calculation. I opened my phone and uploaded the first clip to a newly created page titled, "My Name is Not a Diagnosis." The video wasn't polished, just a static night cam angle from my old bedroom. The grainy footage showed Vanessa entering quietly, glancing over her shoulder, and slipping a small silver packet into my desk drawer. She looked right at the camera before leaving. The clip cut to a voice recording, her voice. "I'll say she's using again. Easy. She's got that history. They'll believe it." No background music, no overlays. Just a black screen with one line of text. "Camera installed by my father, used against me. Now it sets me free." Within hours, it had over 48,000 views. I didn't sleep that night, either. I didn't need to. Everything was scheduled. The next morning, I arrived at a rented legal suite downtown. Clean, neutral, no logos. My attorney, Marcus, sat to my right. To my left was a water bottle and a manila folder. Closed. The live stream started at exactly 9 o'clock a.m. I didn't bother with greetings. I looked straight at the camera and said, "My name is Leora Hoyt, and this is not a cry for help. It's an affidavit." The live viewer count ticked up fast. 500. Then 2,000. I watched it double every minute. Behind the scenes, Vanessa had been sent an invite to join the stream via remote link. Her name appeared in the corner at 9:07. When she came on screen, she looked polished. Too polished, like someone who hired an image consultant an hour before going on camera. Her background was pristine, white couch, framed degrees, a vase of lilies. She smiled and said, "Leora, I think what you're doing is deeply sad." I didn't respond. I just opened the manila folder and slid out one sheet of paper. Bank of Pacific, account ending in 3741, opened under my name, with a loan application listing my employment as disabled dependent, signed with a forged signature. The IP address traces back to your condo on Sunset. This document is notarized. Vanessa's smile twitched. "That's ridiculous," she said. "I don't even—" But her screen froze, then disappeared entirely. She had left the feed. The comments erupted. She ran. That's all we needed to see. Guilty. This is what gaslighting looks like. Real time. I didn't stop. I flipped to the next page. Here is a certified report from Lakewind Medical. It states I have no current prescriptions matching the substances found in the packet planted in my room. The lab confirms those contents were not antidepressants. They were prop meds, intended to mimic withdrawal. The chat exploded again. At 9:19, I pulled out a typed list. 7 bullet points. I read them, one by one. 3 unauthorized loans, 2 fake conservatorship requests filed under Emergency Clause 19B, 1 altered medical file submitted to discredit me, 1 manipulation of a psychiatric evaluation via bribed staffer, 2 counts of digital identity misrepresentation, 1 witness coercion attempt in 2022, public fund embezzlement under a fake wellness initiative bearing my name. Each point was backed by notarized documents, matching digital logs or independent legal affidavits. I'm not angry, I said, meeting the lens. I'm awake. Silence followed, then a wave of shares. By 9:35, the hashtag #JusticeForLeora had trended on 2 platforms. Screenshots of Vanessa's abrupt disconnect were everywhere. People reposted my line, camera installed by my father. Used against me. Now it sets me free. At 10:03 a.m., my inbox pinged. Subject line, urgent. Termination notification. It was from the hospital board where Vanessa held a consulting position. Effective immediately, Dr. Vanessa Hoyt is suspended pending full investigation. This video content qualifies as public evidence under Statute 14C. I didn't respond. Then came a text, unknown number. I wish I'd believed you years ago. I'm sorry. Colleen. Colleen. My cousin. The one who once told me to stop being so theatrical when I tried to talk about what happened in that basement. The fallout wasn't theatrical now. It was systemic. I opened the next email. This one was from a law office. We're representing multiple parties affected by Vanessa Hoyt's grant fraud activities. We'd like to speak with you. Your public file has changed everything. It was no longer about survival. It was reconstruction. My story wasn't a confession. It was a map. And for the first time in years, people were following it. The message from the law firm still hovered on my screen as a second notification slid in. Subject line, termination public disclosure, immediate release. I clicked Vanessa's full name, her title, her date of dismissal. It was a short statement from the institute she once used as her crown jewel. Just 2 paragraphs, 1 sentence each. Due to verified ethical breaches and falsified records, Vanessa Hoyt's position as Director of Strategy has been terminated. Her credentials have been submitted for board-level review. Beneath the plain text was a timestamp. Dated the same morning, I went live. No emotion. No room for defense. Just official language ending an entire career. News picked it up fast. Headlines appeared in bursts. Whistleblower destroys sister's reputation with camera evidence. Livestream exposes medical fraud, family secrets unravel in real time. A clip of my statement was reposted by a forensic accountability group. The caption read, "This is what happens when silence is weaponized and someone decides to speak." Vanessa tried to respond. She posted a thread at 11:42 a.m. First sentence, "It's disappointing that my private family matters are being misconstrued." The replies came like a swarm. You mean the camera footage you looked into? Not family matters when you forge bank docs, ma'am. This you? Followed by a screenshot of her voice planning the setup. By 1:00 p.m., the post was gone. So was her account. That same afternoon, I received a call from the Internal Oversight Council of our family's charitable foundation. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. "Miss Hoyt?" a woman said, her tone neutral but clipped. Due to recent disclosures, an emergency vote was held this morning regarding board roles. We're notifying you that your mother is under internal suspension pending an independent audit. She paused, then added, "We will also be reviewing your previous removal from the grant review panel. That decision may have violated conflict of interest guidelines." I thanked her without smiling. That evening, my inbox filled again. Screenshots, transcripts, backed up texts. A message from my mother to a senior board member, dated 2 weeks before the live stream. "She's erratic. If we don't manage her now, she'll expose everything. If this goes public, we all go down." Another text, this one more direct. "Do not let her near the archives. I don't care what we have to say about her state." The foundation released a separate statement the next day. A full review of all active grants under my mother's oversight would begin immediately. Her official bio was removed from the website by noon. There was one remaining piece. The next notification came not from a whistleblower page, but from the Tax Accountability Bureau. It was an automatic CC. My name appeared under Filed Party of Record. Attached was a document titled Asset Transfer Alias Verification. In bold type on the second page, subject, Hoyt, James, noted as associated party in potential identity masking activity. They listed a vacation property in Carmel by the Sea, acquired under a trust name. The document showed a series of offshore transfers tied back to a medical fund in my name. I had never been to that house. That night, I opened the group chat that used to host every family holiday plan. It was silent, no unread messages, just a line of icons showing who had left the conversation. Vanessa, my mother, even my father. Cousins began unfollowing them on social media. I didn't check who first, but the pattern grew. Then came a voicemail from a relative I hadn't spoken to in 5 years. It was Colleen. Her voice cracked halfway through. I grew up thinking you were broken. They told us you were unstable, that you were dangerous, that you were scary. And I believed them. I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve any of that. I didn't cry. I didn't pace. I just picked up the phone and called her back. When she answered, I said, I believed them too, but not anymore. She didn't say anything for a long time. Sometimes the worst part isn't the betrayal. It's realizing how many people accepted the story without ever asking for proof. But now, the proof was out there. Documents, footage, screenshots, signatures. No longer whispers, no longer trauma turned inward. They tried to erase me using the tools of silence, reputation, medicine, inheritance. I took those same tools and turned them into receipts. By the end of the week, 3 separate investigations had launched, one financial, one medical ethics, and one internal to the foundation. No more dinner invites. No more group trips. No more obligatory cards with stiff handwriting and veiled warnings. The family no longer pretended to be whole. The house of cards had collapsed, and now it was time to reclaim what they tried to steal. The silence in the courtroom didn't feel like peace. It felt like the kind of silence that settles after something has cracked open, when there's nothing left to pretend. I sat straight, my hands still. The judge, a woman in her late 60s with a voice sharper than any lawyer in the room, cleared her throat once. This court has reviewed over 400 pages of financial records, sworn statements, and psychological evaluations, many of which were withheld or altered by the defendants for over a decade. She turned to face my sister and mother, both seated to my left, neither meeting my eyes. Ms. Vanessa Hoyt, you are found complicit in willful document falsification, identity coercion, and the misappropriation of charitable funds intended for your sister's medical and educational trust. Effective immediately, your travel privileges are revoked pending federal inquiry. She paused for the gavel, but it didn't fall yet. She shifted her eyes toward my mother. Miss Ed? Geneva Hoyt, the court finds that you intentionally directed fraudulent narratives to medical and legal institutions regarding your daughter's psychological state. Your personal accounts will remain under state-monitored financial hold for the duration of the restitution process. Then the judge turned to me. Her voice didn't soften. But most critically, let the record show. Miss Leora Haynes was never unstable. She was isolated. She was deceived. She was buried under the weight of someone else's fear of truth. And now, the truth has returned to the surface. Gavel strike. Case concluded. The reporters outside wouldn't get much. No explosion, no screaming match, no last-minute confession. Just legal fact and ordered consequence. By the time I stepped into the private office of my estate attorney 2 days later, I had slept a total of 6 hours. But my mind was clear, sharp in ways it hadn't been in years. My attorney, Mr. Marcus Hill, slid a thick file across the table. He didn't say anything at first. He just tapped the tab labeled Final Severance, Immediate Execution. Inside was a list, every property, every account, every clause from the original family trust I was once erased from. I didn't read the whole thing. I just flipped to the last page and signed. This revokes all shared rights and transfers full control to you, he confirmed. Also, per your prior request, we've executed formal disqualification notices for Geneva and Vanessa Hoyt from all future claims to your assets or businesses, retroactive and permanent. He reached beneath his desk and pulled out a second folder, cream leather bound. No label on the outside. He placed it gently before me. Your independent estate charter. From this moment forward, you are fully and legally severed from the Hoyt family name and holdings. The board has approved the re-establishment of the Haynes Foundation, under your control. I clicked the pen once, and signed my name. No extra flourish, no dramatic line, just a period, and a breath. Done, I said, for good. The call for a final family meeting came the next morning. An extended cousin, Marissa, who had stayed quiet through the trial, claimed some closure would help everyone heal. I didn't respond for 12 hours. Then I texted back, I'll come, but I'm not coming for closure. The house they used was my grandfather's old estate, a place that used to host birthdays and holidays. It looked smaller than I remembered. The table felt colder. Everyone was already seated when I walked in. Geneva looked up, then quickly down. Vanessa didn't even turn. I stayed standing. From my bag, I pulled the same leather-bound folder I'd received from Marcus. I laid it flat in the center of the table. The gold letters on the cover read, Truth Ledger, signed, dated, verified. Inside were copies of everything, documents, receipts, video transcripts, bank records, case notes, medical reversals, and names of every complicit advisor they had used to erase me. Not one of them touched it. Not one of them asked to open it. I didn't wait for discussion. I'm not here to forgive or to be forgiven. I'm here to confirm you all received the facts, I said. You no longer have access to me, or my child, or my name. Vanessa looked up at that, but I didn't flinch. I stepped back, took my bag, and walked toward the door. As I reached the threshold, I turned just once and said quietly, I built a new house, with locks you don't have the keys to. Then I left. Outside, the air was brittle, cold in the way early spring mornings can be, where everything's been broken down by winter but hasn't yet decided what will grow back. A single reporter waited near the gate. I didn't recognize them. And they didn't ask a question, just raised a camera. I didn't stop walking, but I didn't hide. That photo made the rounds by morning. No makeup, no speech, just a woman in black walking out of a house that used to hold her hostage. The headline read, She didn't win loudly, she won permanently. Let the record show. I never burned the house down, I just turned the lights on. The morning after the final meeting, I turned off every notification on my phone. Except one. Not for calls, not for voicemails, just texts. I didn't expect anything, but if they were going to reach out, I wanted to know what version of the truth they were going to choose when no one else was watching. When there was no courtroom, no leverage, no lawyer writing their lines. The first message came at 6:43 a.m. Vanessa. K. I messed up. I know. I miss you. Attached was a blurry photo of the two of us as kids, 8 and 10 maybe, matching sweaters, backyard swing. I stared at it without tapping. No reaction, no breath caught, just data. Then I opened the image. There, barely visible in the background, was Geneva's hand gripping Vanessa's shoulder. Even then, control hidden in the frame. I let the screen dim. I didn't save the message. I didn't screenshot it. Instead, I whispered out loud, She wants a version of me that never existed. Then I slid my thumb and held the screen. Delete conversation. Confirm. I didn't text back. I didn't mark it unread. I didn't let it live in my phone as proof. Because it wasn't. It was bait. That night, around 11:20 p.m., I got a voicemail. No caller ID. But I knew the voice before she said my name. Leora, I don't even know where to begin. I was scared. I thought I was doing what was best. You always made things harder. You were always so sensitive. I didn't mean to hurt you like that. I didn't know what else to do. I'm still your mother. That has to count for something. Her voice cracked near the end. Not from pain, from panic. The kind of fear people have when they realize they've lost control, not love. I listened once, no rewinds, no tears. Then I opened my encrypted archive and selected one file. Power of attorney, age 15, signature forced, notarized, backdated by VH. It was the document she had claimed I was too unstable to understand. She'd used it to cut off my medical access, redirect my school records, block any appeal. I attached the PDF to a new message and typed only one word in the subject line: receipt. I hit send, no text, no explanation, just evidence. By noon the next day, there were no new messages. The inbox stayed quiet. The voicemail icon disappeared. Nothing followed. It felt clean. That afternoon, I sat at my desk. Not the makeshift one from years ago. A real desk, in a room I'd designed myself. The chair fit. The light hit the page without glare. There were no locked drawers, no missing pages. I pulled out an envelope labeled "For Me Only" and began typing. It wasn't a reply. It wasn't even a letter meant to be read. It was a closure statement. Not for them, for myself. Forgiveness isn't a doorway. It's a deadbolt. I don't offer it to invite you back. I offer it to release my grip on the past. I forgive you, not because you asked, not because you deserve it. I forgive you so I can walk forward unchained. But I don't carry your names with me, not mother, not sister, not family. I printed it, folded it, and slipped it into the back of the original medical folder, the one with all the lies. Then I stood up. No pause, no dramatic sigh, just motion. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed the second printed copy of the forged psychiatric summary, and held it under the flame of a long stem match. The corner curled first. Then the ink began to melt. The text warped, crumbled, and blackened into ash. There were no alarms, just heat and silence. When it was done, I opened the window and let the last fleck float into the air. It didn't rise, it dropped, quiet and final. I turned to face the room. No photos on the walls, no awards, no family crests. Just a whiteboard with a single line scribbled in blue. Today, no one owns my story but me. I erased it with one swipe of my hand, not because it wasn't true anymore, but because it no longer needed to be said. This was not a new beginning. This was an unburdened continuation. And now that silence had spoken, it was time to build something louder than any apology. Legacy, the house I rebuilt from ashes. I didn't celebrate. No champagne, no calls, no "we made it." The moment I clicked submit on the final legal form, I just stood there, alone, watching the screen refresh. Confirmation ID blinking at the bottom like a pulse, quiet but undeniable. The Personal Justice Defense Fund was now officially registered. I didn't name it after myself. This wasn't about branding. It was about putting a system in place where people like me, trapped in the murk of silence, gaslighted by those meant to love them, could find one clean thread of truth to hold on to. Something to pull them out, something to cut through. Within 72 hours, the story caught fire. An independent journalist in Chicago picked it up first, quoting lines from the court records. Then a national media watchdog added it to a segment titled "Families That Rewrite History." And then, it happened. The old footage surfaced. A shaky home video clip from a family birthday, year stamped 2006. It showed Vanessa turning the camera toward me as I hesitated at the edge of the frame. "Don't be shy, Lo," she giggled. Geneva's voice in the background. "Fix your face! You look ridiculous!" The clip ended abruptly. That 11-second artifact became the rally cry of a movement. #justice. Is Personal trended for 5 days straight. Not because my story was rare, but because it wasn't. Victims sent emails, messages, letters. Some in shaky grammar, some with legal documents, some with nothing but, "Me too. Please tell me how to begin." The first donation came from a woman in Pennsylvania, a single $1. The note said, "This is all I have, but I want to be counted." I counted her. I counted every single one. By the end of the week, we'd hit $72,000. Not in sympathy, but solidarity. A month later, I stood on the red dot. No script, no glam team, no family in the front row. The TEDx coordinator had asked me gently, "Are you sure you want to do this live?" I looked her straight in the eye. Yes? I want them to hear my breath when I say it. And so I began. They told me I was unstable, that I made things up, that I needed help, but not the kind I thought. And for a long time, I believed them, until I found the file. Until I saw my own signature, backdated, notarized by the aunt who smiled through every holiday. No one moved. I kept going. A real family isn't where you're silenced. It's where you're safe. Safety doesn't mean perfection. It means presence. It means someone sees the wound and says, "I believe you, and I'll help clean it." Not prove it. Not "you're too emotional." Not "we were just trying to protect you." You don't protect someone by burying them. When I finished, the silence broke like a wave. Not polite clapping, not network applause, a surge. I saw people stand, not all at once, one by one, quietly. That's how the movement built, never in chaos, always in choice. By midnight, the full video was live. Comments rolled in. This saved my life. I thought I was the only one. I recorded my own mother today after watching this. No more secrets. Thank you. I didn't reply to most. I didn't need to. The story was working, not for me, for them. 2 months later, I walked through the front door of the house I once escaped barefoot. I had to unlock it myself. No more spare key under the cracked lion statue. New locks, new deed, new name. The property was now under an LLC. I bought it with the proceeds of the foundation's publishing rights and legal speaking events. The walls were no longer off-white. The wallpaper with the faint tulips, gone. Instead, neutral tones, thick curtains, double-glazed windows. The air no longer felt like it held secrets. It felt normal. Room by room, I rebuilt it. Not restored. Reclaimed. What once held threats now held promise. One room had been converted into a group therapy space. Another was a legal prep center for survivors, complete with file cabinets, encrypted systems, and a trauma-informed legal advisor on call. Outside, a new plaque mounted beside the fresh-painted doorframe. The Haynes Center, for survivors of family psychological abuse. Some asked me why I didn't name it after myself, because this wasn't about me anymore. It was about never letting another girl think silence was her only option. The day the first visitor arrived, I was in the kitchen, labeling folders. I heard the bell. I walked to the front, not expecting much. It was a girl, maybe 13, skinny frame, shoulders hunched like she was trying to fold herself into nothing. Beside her stood a woman in her 40s, firm but kind. "I'm her aunt," she said. "We need help." I looked into the girl's eyes, wide, still, but scanning. She was looking for exits, for traps, for false hope. I bent slightly, not crouching, not condescending, just level. And I said, "You're not broken. You're just not done growing yet." She didn't speak, but her shoulders lowered. That was enough. Later that night, I sat alone at the front desk. The building was quiet, but not silent. No fear, no secrets, just peace. I pulled out one of the archived folders from the cabinet, an old printout of a psychiatric summary Geneva had used in court. I wrote one word across the front in thick black ink, "void," and slipped it back in, not to save it, but to keep the proof that truth once lived buried. Not anymore. They tried to erase me. So I built something they could never touch, the truth in public. This time, I kept the receipts, and I used them to open a door for someone else. Sometimes, the loudest revenge is a quiet, permanent shift in who holds the narrative. Not through shouting, not through matching cruelty with cruelty, but through undeniable truth, documented, signed, public. If there's one thing I learned, it's this: your silence never protected you, but your truth just might protect someone else. What would you build if you stopped waiting for them to understand? If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because the next story might just reflect something you've been waiting to name.